mean, no, it's wild. Faster for sure. But we had an awesome time here at the gym watching the fights on Saturday. I know you guys had a good outing at the PKB. I had an awesome time at Toro Cup. Mostly we're just going to start off by talking about the UFC card that just happened in Orlando, and then after that we'll get into this upcoming weekend's pay-per-view card. Weird to say that considering it's not nearly as good as last week's
this
Orlando
free
card.
fight card, like I said, if you'd asked, hey, pay us $20, I'd be like, yeah, absolutely, I'd watch it. This pay-per-view, I don't care about.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's not that I don't care about it. There are some compelling fights. It's just that, like, it's not compelling enough to warrant being a pay-per-view in and of itself.
Right.
Especially given the main event. So anyway, as the great Jack Slack would say, no sense in burying the lead. Let's talk about the main event, Kevin Holland versus Stephen Thompson. And, man, we were losing it in here watching this fight.
I've never seen someone get heel kicked so many times in a fight.
Yeah. I remember when Wonderboy was walking out, I was like, you know, he's got really fast hook kicks and heel kicks. And I don't remember if it was a niche, but somebody was just like, he's too slow to throw heel kicks now. Or hook kicks, and he just like foot smacks Holland.
Well, he's too slow to do a heel kick or a spinning heel kick or a wheel kick or anything like that by itself. And he used to be fast enough to do that by himself. But an object in motion stays in motion. And I was talking about like his tight footwork.
Yeah.
The more he starts to use his hands to be on those feet, it creates that torque of punching back to pulling back around for that wheel kick. Or actually, from him being southpaw, he'll really over-punch that hook and use that to pull back to create a bit more spin on that wheel kick. Yeah.
I feel like as time has gone on, like you were saying last week, his lateral movement and his speed in that regard, his ringsmanship has slowed down quite a bit, but the actual level of the technique of the speed of the strikes has not wavered nearly.
And it's when he's just adding more steps in.
Yeah.
And he has
and
that
his boxing looks so much better.
His boxing looks so good, and that's where the speed's coming from.
Yeah. And after the fight, he said he wants to stay with the UFC. He wants to fight.
Awesome.
He wants to keep fighting in the UFC.
I think that they're going to keep giving him like the fights that he wants, so probably a few more
Bro,
strikers.
If that doesn't sell the UFC on the idea that this guy should only be matched up against people that are going to stand with him, then I don't know what will.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, like you said, you know, he had his Gilbert Burns kind of had his hands full, but Bilal made easy work of Wonderboy. So, but Kevin Holland looked very. He was forced in a way by his own strategy, I guess, to look very one-dimensional.
Yeah, he looked like he really was trying to follow through on that gentleman's agreement he made, and I was like, that's a bad idea, bud. But I really don't think, and I was talking about this after the fight, man. Even if he did try to make it more of an MMA fight, he just didn't have answers on attacking in space. Like you talk about, like, you know, Kevin Holland got Wonderboy to the cage quite a bit, but Wonderboy never did the wrong thing. I think, you know, we see Kevin Holland, he's at that point where he still makes mistakes, and he wants other people to make a mistake. Kevin Holland cannot beat people that are being perfect in their own fight. Does that make sense? He's good about finding people's holes. And Stephen Thompson just stuck to a game plan of like, all right, bet. I know I'm going to hit the cage. Here's how I get off the cage. Staying busy, staying active. His hips never sat still. He always had frames. He always adjusted. He was always looking to disengage to a back into the kickboxing match. And he was finding it on the small breaks. So when you saw Stephen breaking off the cage, he would find tight hooks and punches, and Kevin's like, what the fuck are you? You're hitting me right here? Like, this is where we grapple.
Yeah.
And I think this is going to help add another dimension to Kevin Holland's MMA game, and that's in that clinching and on the cage, where you can use like that stiff wall finds like some pretty good options for guys who can create frames and step off. Guys that are used to coming off of a boxing ring and stuff like that know how to step off with strikes in that tight spot. And that's where Kevin Holland was getting paused at. And that's when Wonderboy was making the exit I saw. It's just, you know, Wonderboy fought a perfect fight. And that's it. Even if your perfect fight is not the most complete game plan, it's going to work perfectly for you. Like, you can, you know, like Holland was like, all right, he's going to kickbox me. I'm going to put him in the cage. I'm going to do this. And Wonderboy was like, yeah, I know you're going to do that. But this is what I do, and I will not make mistakes in forcing what I do. And he just, you know, he was just perfect when he had to be perfect. And Kevin Holland cannot beat perfect fighters.
Holland was able to land the cross, especially early, a lot to hurt Wonderboy, but his jab was like...
I don't think it was really hurting Wonderboy that much.
It rocked him one time.
One time, I mean, but then it's also...
But also the cut came from the right hand.
Yes, he was
and
cut
then a clash
early.
of heads.
Yes, clash of heads.
So,
but Kevin Holland is very good hitting MMA strikers hard. It's different trying to hit a high-level striker hard. And it's like we can always, and I always like to relate, like one of the more famous moments in cross fighting is, cross promotions is when Conor McGregor hit Kevin McGregor. Listen out here, Kevin McGregor. You got a good uppercut. Believe in it. But when Conor McGregor hit Mayweather with the hardest punch that he had ever thrown in MMA, Mayweather went, okay. I'm not going to get hit by that
Strikers
again.
know how to get hit. So
Yeah,
you said the same thing last week.
And Kevin Thompson, he got hit with that cross, and he's like,
Kevin Thompson.
God damn, what did I say? Oh, man.
Kevin Holland.
Kevin!
Keenan Thompson is on Saturday Night Live, which I understand that makes things confusing.
All right,
considering Kevin Holland and Keenan Thompson look so much alike.
We'll toss this one up in the scrum, okay? Stephen Thompson, he got hit by that cross and just went, all right, I know where not to be. And Kevin Holland kept trying to punch into that space again. And Wonderboy was like, oh, that's where you're at? Sidekick, overhand, exiting with a kick, stuff like that.
Strikes,
the
like
wall of strikes. He also knew just to keep himself offline. Like,
one thing that
if you're an MMA fighter and you're used to always punching into a takedown, you're gonna have to keep your head on a line. And that's what Kevin Holland finds.
Yeah, right.
And
Especially
Stephen Thompson was
trying
like, dog, I'm never going to be looking for a takedown.
When you're trying to
you.
drive someone into the cage, you tend to go in a straight line too. And
it
was clear that Holland was, if not looking to take Wonderboy down against the fence, he was at least looking to put his back on the fence.
And he's looking for Wonderboy to even be like, you can still be offline and shoot and make the entry, but Stephen Thompson was exiting off the kicks.
And what a shift.
And that would kick Kevin Holland into place. I got the names right this time.
Yeah.
And that's when Wonderboy just kept starting to run more and more circles around him.
Yeah, it was crazy how much we were talking about during the fight. We were talking about, look at how much the dynamic shifted from the first round to the final moments of the fight. It was insane how Holland was basically pursuing Wonderboy like the Wile E. Coyote. You know, I mean, he was so relentless, swinging huge, pushing Wonderboy, and had us on the edge of our seat thinking that he was going to finish him. And then by the time that fourth round rolls around, he's literally just frozen in his own corner against the fence wall, getting heavy bagged by Wonderboy, shades of Johnny Hendricks.
A lot of people that come into MMA are used to seeing the long grappling fight unfold and not the long striking match unfold.
For sure.
And what it looked like was, the later end of any high-level kickboxing match, where you just slowly keep ponging that person into place.
Yeah, that's
and
exactly
the pong
what
battles
he was
are getting
doing.
closer, and then he even though he didn't have a corner to hit him in, and I was talking about that when you see the octagon inside the octagon, he hit Kevin Holland at every intersection of that, so he knew where to circle him into. And eventually, as he slowly knocked him past those, he finally got him stuck on the cage wall. And look, as I said before, you have to punch a person into place. Like, you have to be committed to punching them in to keep them there. You still have to go left and right and corral them back into that spot. But it's a bit of a harder time to keep someone on that cage than it is like in the corner in a kickboxing match. It's a lot less work. But Wonderboy knew to be left, right, middle, 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 right, left, middle, stuff like that. And that's what slowly made Kevin Holland get stuck in that one spot. And you saw that line slowly grow as that fight played on.
As his mobility went down.
He knew to create a straight line with his strikes back on Holland from like small cage to big, or the inside cage to the wall.
The
cage.
black line.
The black line.
Yeah,
Thank
the black
you.
line. That's how I always think about it too.
Yeah.
I'm always like, you got to watch that black line. And, if I was coaching a fighter in the UFC, I would definitely have them be very aware of that thing because it's a great marker. It's almost like the 50-yard line on a football field, where it's just like, it's something that if you're watching and you're a casual person just watching, you don't think about how pivotal it is. But the fight that made me realize how crucial that fucking black line is was No Love versus Dominic Cruz, because Cody would never leave the black line. Every time he looked down and saw it, he would circle back to the center, and he never let himself. He was always like taking the center back from Dominic
That's
that
a
entire
great
fight,
call.
and
Yeah.
then calling him back. Like when Dominic tried to exit, he was like, "No, we're fighting in the center, dude. You have to come in." Like he shut down all those angles, all those escapes because he wasn't he was forcing Dominic to come at him in a straight line, basically. Yep. Yeah. Brian Barberena gets wrestle fucked by RDA and to a submission. And I remember when the walkouts were happening, the people we were watching with were asking us about what could happen in the fight. And I remember I was like, this will be a good fight for Brian as long as he doesn't just get taken down in the first minute.
Yeah.
And sure enough, RDA walked him over to the fence in about 10 seconds, double underhooked him and took him down. And I was like, yeah, Brian's not ready for this guy.
No, not. Yeah, and you know what? Good for Brian for making it into the spotlight like he has. He's
That's
definitely
co-main on a big card.
He's earning his place in the UFC.
Yeah, for sure.
But,
Don't know how many
but RDA
has,
showed, hey, this is what over a decade looks like in here.
Yeah, at the highest level.
Yeah.
At the highest level, fighting the toughest guys.
Now,
in the world.
Rafael Dos Anjos has been fighting in the UFC as long as Brian Barberena has probably been really training full-time MMA,
Yeah,
if that.
Yeah. RDA calling out Connor after that one. Now that Connor's on steroids, everybody wants to fight him. It's crazy.
You know, I think Rafael just knows that he can fight him at 70 and not 55 or 45. And he has his best chance of also being able to absorb shots at 70.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, he didn't even really get touched in this one.
Oh,
I don't
not
know.
at all.
I don't think Barberini landed a significant strike.
Yeah, it's good to see RDA just get back to his super aggressive cage fighting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super aggressive on the wrestling.
And it's all on the wall. Like, it's very transitional. And you know, when I say cage fighting, very, broad term for this, but it's how he fights people on the wall.
His wall work is
he's very good about, he bumps people off the wall and, into his shoulder, and it slowly, breaks him down on the way down. He's very violent. It looks like people being, like Ace Ventura when he's in the Great White Shark Tank getting thrown back and forth.
Yes.
He looks like a person, you look like you're in the movie Jaws. If RDA has you on the wall, you just look like you're getting, just battered.
For some reason, I never think about the first movie. I always think about When Nature Calls, when he's in the jungle. Really? I always think about that being the default Ace Ventura movie. I don't know if it's just because it was the first one I saw when I was a kid, but when I think of Ace Ventura, I always just think about the spears and the legs,
that's the best part.
The rhino birth scene, of course.
For a sequel, that movie had some gems.
It's not a bad sequel.
My head is always on the first one.
Mateus Nicolau, Matthew Schnell putting on a good performance. Schnell got rocked once early, and from that point on, it was like you could see Nicolau just kind of.
He knew where that spot was, and Schnell kept going back to it.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's what I was talking about earlier. Kevin Holland does a good job when someone starts just swinging, he stays the calmer guy. Where Schnell still kind of flips his shit and will go off. I think that he got caught up in the exciting fight paychecks.
I think so too, because that was my big problem with his performance here, is that I was like, man, I really feel like normally Nicolau is more of a slow starter. He's more of a guy who tries to kind of corral you with striking, but because he doesn't necessarily have people running onto his shots, he's not a big-time finisher.
Ran into a lot
but
of those.
Because Shell made it a brawl and got rocked early, he gave Nicolau a lot of confidence to be coming after the exchanges more aggressively. Mm-hmm. And he also knew that he had Schnell hurt, and so it was just blood in the water after that point. But if he would have just allowed Nicolau to kind of be in first gear, maybe he could have taken him down. And we know Matt Schnell's got great jiu-jitsu, I would just like
if
to
it's
see
an
more of
MMA
that.
fight, make it, and MMA is your specialty, make it an MMA fight from the bat.
Yeah, for sure. Sergey Pavlovich. He knocks out Ty in 54 seconds.
Fight Nagano.
Yeah.
Fight Nagano.
Yeah, Sergey Nagano. Man, I felt like when Ty got hit the first time, I was like, this is when Ty usually lands a big shot and comes back. But every shot that Ty tried to throw after that first big shot, he missed. And
I've
Sergey
never seen such
had good head
technical power lifter boxing before.
Yeah, he was moving his head very well.
He looked like, damn, only at heavyweight can you strike like this.
Yeah.
And I refer to a lot as the T-stepping, where you have to get your big-ass shoulders stepping with your shots to step and catch a head, and that creates athleticism at heavyweight.
I want to see this dude fight.
Tai Tuivasa just sticking his ground a little bit too much.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing.
But that's what he does.
Yeah.
But, like, Sergey was good about every time he was stepping, and he was stepping back offline, missing by just a little bit, always being kind of, like, rolling with that shot, and then coming right back behind it as soon as Tai would miss. And he would come back with 2 or 3 at a time, where instead Tai likes to look for that 1 at a time.
Yeah.
And Sergey knew to land at least 2 at a time. And that makes the biggest difference at heavyweight.
It's interesting how certain guys have that reputation, though, because we watched the fight with a lot of people who watch fights all the time.
Yes.
So as soon as Tai got hit, it wasn't like, oh, in the sense of we're waiting, we're going to see a finish now. It was, like Tai's about to land big. Like, like that's the reputation he has, is that he gets hurt and then he lands big. And it's just like, we were waiting for that shot, and every shot Tai threw, I mean, Sergey was just a fucking heavyweight ghost.
Yes.
I mean, he like the fucking ghost of the mountain from Game of the Thrones. He was just...
He just knew not to be in the same spot at all.
Exactly.
And,
he was constantly moving and changing levels, not just moving back and forth, not just moving up and down. Diagonal, 8-way movement, like you were saying. That was an awesome KO.
Yes.
And then, speaking of awesome KOs, I don't know if they get much more awesome than Roman Dolidze with the calf slicer trap on Jack Hermanson in a fight he was definitely not winning.
Yeah.
But he was making jiu-jitsu look so good in that fight. He hit a fucking pendulum sweep, which I haven't seen in jiu-jitsu in forever. He hit like the same setup from half guard into like a triangle attempt that rolled him. I mean, he was using the fuck out of some no-gi jiu-jitsu.
Yes.
And Jack Hermanson, educated in the ways of grappling, knew that calf slicer it wasn't, because there was no hand power to it, I think he wasn't really worried about being injured. He was just in a lot of pain. So he was like, I can grit and bear it until I figure out what to do. But I think Dolidze got really creative with that. I mean, Henry Gracie was talking about on Instagram how that's part of his police detainment training system.
Absolutely.
Is that calf slicer control.
Yeah.
And
then you still have 2 free hands to do
exactly
whatever you want
to obtain. And I was just enamored by that. And I know my coach Cody Malte was losing his mind at that one too, because we talked about it right after. Eric Anders taking on Kyle Dawkins, and we were talking about it on the show before, where we were like, Eric Anders should win this one, but he's allowed his athleticism to get him into situations where he can be taken advantage of, whether it be in the grappling or the realm. But he was a much sharper striker in this one than we had seen in a long time.
He looked way more polished. He looked overall a lot cleaner, had a better mindset. He didn't go in for kill and be killed.
No,
like, and kids, like, don't go fucking watching the movie 300 and say, I'm going to come back on my shield. Fuck that. Come back with your sword and your shield.
Yeah.
You can get a new fucking shield. Like, damn, kids. Actually, no, you really can't, man. When that shield goes, it kind of goes sometimes.
Yeah, not this one.
Not this one, but but no, like, come back with your sword and your shield. Don't go out on your shield. Like, sometimes that shield doesn't come back. That's a better way of looking at it, Sometimes that shield doesn't really come back.
Yeah, and that's what we saw in the main event. I mean, can you imagine what would have happened to Holland if he walked out there for that 5th round with 2 broken hands and as beat up as he was, and getting kicked in the body and throwing up in the corner? And
that's bad, kids. That's bad.
Bad news. Yeah, you can be I always say this, but you can be a tough guy sometimes when it comes to the headshots. Like, you can just kind of be like, oh, I'm fine, I'm okay, and act like you don't have concussionary symptoms. But you cannot do that with a significant amount of body damage.
Yes.
It becomes immediately obvious to everyone around you that you're fucked up. You're throwing up in the corner. You can't keep water down. You're starting to, like, kind of involuntarily lean forward and bend over.
We didn't cover any of that. That was a very dramatic way to unfold.
Yeah.
It's like watching, like, the end of a movie unfold.
Yeah, I think it was the 3rd round or maybe the second. I think it might have been the 3rd round where he went back and he threw up immediately. Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, he's really taking some pain in this one.
Yeah.
All right.
But man, poor Kyle Dawkins, just he had a lot. Man, that goes to show, like, absolutely, like, almost untouchable in everything except the UFC
in the East Coast.
Yeah, like, like, there's just levels to it. And Eric Anders, like, his a few fights apart, but Eric Anders has definitely been at that higher level for a longer time, and that's just what showed.
Well, I mean, you look at the New England, New Jersey, the most populated areas of the East Coast are the most far behind in MMA because of the laws taking the longest to get passed in New York and all this other stuff. So, you can only
Being
hope
from
that
North Carolina.
East Coast MMA, you can only hope is getting better and better.
Yes.
And then we had Nico Price taking on Phil Rowe in the what you called the King of Florida fight.
The King of Florida fight.
And boy, was it ever a Florida fight.
Was it the most technical Florida man fight I have ever seen?
Yeah. It was, you said that Darren Elkins' fight last week was the most technical fight in a cornfield. This is the most technical fight in the parking lot of Universal Studios Orlando.
Yes. Yes.
Nico Price was definitely winning this one, I thought, especially going into that second round. I really felt like he was taking control.
Philip Rowe realized that he cannot out crazy Nico Price.
Yeah.
Nico Price is a special kind of crazy, and he reminds me of Darren Elkins. If you try to go crazy with him all the way through the fight, it's going to get bad for you when you don't want it to. But then Philip Rowe, big shout out to him and his striking development for this one. And another thing with striking development is composure. And some big changes in his corner recently is that he has Dominique Simmons out of Siam Muay Thai. No, he runs the Siam Fight promotion. He has a gym in Daytona, and I believe it's also Siam Boxing. He's very big on composure in fights, and that's just one thing I have to tell people is you cannot hunt like that all the time, especially in a sport like MMA where there's so many different little crazy things that can happen. Yeah. And Nico Price will just always be firing at you. And then Philip Rowe got privy onto it, and you see once he relaxed, then he just went, "There's the opening," and he settled in.
He put on a boxing clinic,
and it was from the back foot too a lot of times. So he started to play Matador. He was like, "Shit, okay, let me just not try to let me not force the bigger shot. Let me just sit back, force myself to relax. Whatever, the fight is where it's at, and let me find the cleaner shots." And like I tell people, the best punch to feel is the one that people run into, man. If you step forward, you can kind of feel your jab landing, but when you sometimes take a step back and pump that jab out, it makes one walk into it.
Painful.
Oh, it's such a good feel. Because if you felt it, then they had a hell of a time running into it.
Yeah.
You ever been running through the woods at night and run into a tree branch? It's like that. Where the fuck did that come from? But it was right in front of me. And you just get stuck behind that. And it also makes whatever comes next way worse. It's like getting hit with a 2x4 and then a 2x4 coming out of a cannon right behind it, if that makes sense. Yeah. That's what Philip Rowe showed with that reach. That reach just going, he just said, fuck it. The only way to win is to take a step back. He put himself on the cage wall. That's when fucking Nico Price would come running in the hardest, and he was like, all right, whop, whop. And then as soon as Nico Price got put on the back pedal, that's the only time that Philip Rowe started to step in.
Yeah, exactly. And once he had him on the back pedal, it was Pain City. Yes. I was grimacing when that finish finally came because I was like, is
poor Nico Price
is down?
It's damn, could you please go down?
That's exactly how I felt.
Yeah. Stop it, you're killing out.
Yeah, that's how I felt about Bubba Jenkins and the PFL thing against Brandon Locke. I mean, there's certain fights where you just see, and but even Kevin Holland in the main event. A lot
of refs will look at the fighter, and they see it a lot. It's when the eyes go, the ass is about to fall out. But Nico Price, that's fucking Florida, man. Every time you'd see him get hit, his eyes would just stay on Nico Price, even though his feet were getting a little baby deerish. But he was like, you're right there. I got to go back at you. And, doing that will keep you in that fight. But that's when it starts becoming that risky, oh, fuck, my nails are gone kind of moment.
Yeah, for sure.
And it takes just 2 or 3 seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
But
I thought the stoppage was really good.
It was a really good stoppage, yeah. But you were starting to see some of those shots add up, and he was getting baby leg, baby leg, baby leg. And it was as soon as his eyes actually snapped away, the ref was like, okay, fuck, we got to stop. And it's that's just...
Because if you get hit then, it's nice.
In jiu-jitsu, you're kind of making eye contact with someone, and then you're like, oh shit, they're unconscious. You can see the person check out. And that's what refs look for, but with, a strike. Yeah, that happened to Izzy.
Yeah.
Guess where his eyes were not at? Pohea. Mm-hmm. They were on the floor where he was heading, and it's that's just it sometimes. Got to save the fighter from himself. Yeah.
Good point. Was there any of those prelim fights you wanted to specifically mention?
Still bummed out about Brunson and Hermanson not happening.
We liked
Angela Hill had an absolute fucking masterclass.
Yeah, she
Holy
did.
shit. She had, and She and Stephen Thompson had a very similar
Arc.
game
They
arc.
had an arc going into this. The narrative was
Well,
similar.
not just the storyline, but I mean a very similar fight of how they
too.
executed the inside and outside cage. But Angela Hill kept bringing it back to the middle, where she knew to stay away from Emily Duquette by being by that wall a little bit more. Like she did the same thing, but it's like you were talking about Garbrandt going back to the middle, and Angela would just keep pulling her into that fucking
The Muay Thai
buzzsaw.
fundamentals.
Yes,
you were noting during the fight were
way less
really
darty, way more settled. So
Yeah.
it looked like Emily Duquette just looked like she was stuck in a washing machine the whole fight. Ba 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 ba. Back and forth. Clay Guida wins the old man fight of the night.
He looked great.
It looked great. Scott Holtzman hangs it up. That's a bummer. It's been fun to watch his career.
Appropriate.
Michael Johnson fought Mark Button Mash Diakasi. It looked like he was kind of just button mashing.
This is the one fight I missed.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Because I was on the way over here.
Mark just looked like he was just button mashing, doing cool shit the whole time. But Michael Johnson just stayed behind his jab cross the whole time, and that was really the fight. Then Darren Elkins and Jonathan Pierce, the most technical
fight in the cornfield.
And
boy, it was.
Nathan Levy put on a body lock clinic against Gennaro Valdez.
And then called out Kanye West.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Man, I had the volume down on that one, I guess.
He said it in the press conference after.
Francis Marshall stays undefeated, knocks out Marcelo Rojo, the youngest old man in the featherweight division. Isn't that right? Yeah, he's the one that's like 40. Or he's like 40, but he looks like he still fights like a young guy. It's wild. Yasmin Huaraguay knocked out Estela Nunez, just good old-fashioned time cross. Made her walk into it. So, good fight. I mean, I thought it was a great fight top to bottom, man. It really was. I can't believe it was free.
Rojo's 34.
Oh, 34.
Are you not thinking about Guido Canetti?
Man,
he's old. He's old.
Yeah.
He's the guy who looks like John Barenthal's Punisher a little bit.
Ha! That's who I'm thinking of, man. Fuck. Okay, yeah. No, Francis Marshall. He had a good knockout.
Yeah. So that's it, guys. I had a great time watching this card, and especially for it being an ESPN Plus card, I thought it was some bangers, some disappointing fights, but all in all, fun.
Really fun. I can see how the 282 card has a bit more. It's kind of head to toe with people that have been headlining the fight nights kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
But man, I mean, looking at this fight card, is it going to be good fights? I'm gonna be busy cornering. Hopefully, I'm done early with that. And of course, I'm still gonna try and watch it.
Well, let's talk about that.
Let's talk about
UFC 282 going down this Saturday. As far as the prelims go, the only fight I was going to mention that I think is very interesting is Billy Quarantillo versus Alexander Hernandez. I think that's a fun fight.
TJ Brown's fun to watch.
Yeah, TJ Brown is fun to watch, for sure. And he's up against the gamer and Eric Silva. That could be good.
Gustafsson St. Pro was canceled.
Yeah, not surprising there.
Yeah,
Billy St. Pro
Quarantillo
lost 3 opponents leading up to this.
Really?
He's lost. That was his third opponent that pulled out the
Bummer.
Antonio Trocoli.
Billy Quarantillo and Hernandez. Yeah, that'll be. Those guys seem kind of familiar. They are not familiar, but and not exactly carbon copies, but they're very similar fighters. They're still kind of blood and guts on their feet. They kind of fight with their chest out because they really want to shoot on you. Very similar grapplers, but I'd say Quarantillo definitely has a bit more of an edge of the flow on the ground, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Quarantillo, the difference between the grappling between these two is that Quarantillo wants the grappling. He welcomes it. Alexander has good grappling, but he wants it on the feet. He wants it against the cage wall. He wants to be throwing big shots. I think that's been the problem with his career as he's come into the UFC is that he's really sought to just stand with some of the best strikers. I mean, that was he got fucked up by Cowboy, and that kind of set him on the path.
He also got slept by somebody else recently. Did he? Not Oliveira. Why do I think Oliveira knocked him out for some reason? But I feel like he got knocked out by someone else because he just tried to play it as a game a bit too much on the feet, where the other fighter took it a bit more serious. For some reason
he got subbed by Moicano in the fight before that.
I remember Moicano subbing him, okay. But he got clipped pretty good in that, didn't he?
I don't remember.
I don't know, I'm just seeing I'm thinking he also made that same mistake again after the Cowboy fight. I don't know. Well, I'll blame that one to my own brain damage.
he got KO'd by Drew Dober, but that was like 2 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, man, maybe that just was a bit more recent on my head because it was a good knockout.
No,
So
he did have a.
I think it's because I enjoy seeing him get knocked out. I don't know, I mean, there's just something about like certain people where I'm just like, yeah, you could probably punch in the face.
The first interview I heard,
like I bet like he's probably a nice guy to hang out, but at the same time,
fought Beneil.
That's right. He called out Beneil, like Beneil manhandled him, right? Or no, he beat Beneil.
He beat Beneil on
that's
short
right.
notice.
He knocked him out. Yes, that's right.
That was Beneil's last loss.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And look where they are now. This guy's on the fucking early prelims.
Yeah.
Prelims,
Chris Curtis, Joaquin Buckley.
That's a fucking awesome fight right there, buddy. Let me tell you.
You're so excited for that fight.
I love the way both these guys fight.
Yeah.
And I know that they're both I don't want to say they're both assholes, but they're both the same personality type, and they feel the need to be the biggest personality in the room.
Yes.
And they often bring that with them into the octagon. So I do feel like Chris is going to jaw at Buckley, and Buckley is not going to just sit there and be quiet.
Yeah.
Like, that's incapable.
It'll be interesting. I feel like grappling-wise, they're both a bit similar. Chris Curtis is going to be a bit more polished if they hit the ground. But he's always been very eager to get back up to the feet. So, if they go to the ground, it's probably just to try and score points.
I agree.
On the feet, Joaquin Buckley, I think, will just fire off a bit more of an arsenal. He definitely has great side kicks, his explosive kicks, and he apparently taught himself.
He's one of the most athletic freak-nature humans I've ever seen in my life.
Chris Curtis, good boxer, kind of fights too much like Sean Strickland now.
I agree. Something has changed.
They both almost have like a cocksucker guard.
Something has changed with Chris Curtis. I don't know if it's that exposure to that, or if he's maybe just decided to change his style. But I feel like before the Jack Hermanson fight even, but definitely in the Jack Hermanson fight, he just seems like his striking has been I don't want to say digressing, but it's changed. Like it's lower volume.
Well, he
starts
realizing that he can't always just box in an MMA fight. And I think he was just finding too much boxing. All right, so yeah, we're talking Chris Curtis. His striking is definitely taking a change. I think he knows that, like, it's like, shit, man, if you just try to do too much of one thing, people can do a lot more things back.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And he's trying to get a bit more educated with his boxing. But I think that he's now starting to find out maybe he didn't have like the set of fundamentals to be a specialist like he thought he was. Yeah,
I'm interested to see what he looks like in this one, because I do think he is one of the better middleweights out there. Like in any other promotion, he'd probably be the champion.
Exactly, but like in the UFC, it's like
middleweight's one of the worst divisions for that.
Yeah, and it's like one of those things. Like if he were fighting on like Fight Pass right now, like he'd be king of Fight Pass or in like regional promotions, and hell, he'd be a contender in something like Bellator
or one.
Yeah. Actually, especially at like middleweight.
Who's the middleweight champion right now? The Russian guy? Isn't the Russian guy the middleweight champion?
The Ritter, or is that light heavyweight? He just got.
He just beat Gegard, right?
In one?
No, I'm talking about Bellator.
Oh.
Who's the middleweight champion of one or Bellator rather? Fuck,
dude, I don't pay attention.
Because it's not Gegard anymore.
No, right? It's not Gegard. It was. Why don't we just look up the most important research device ever? In our phones. Fucking idiots.
Sometimes it's.
Are you looking up Bellator?
You can just remember. Johnny Eblen.
Oh yeah.
Johnny Eblen versus.
He beat John Salter and yeah.
Eblen versus Curtis would be cool.
Yes,
in
exactly.
a fantasy fight league.
Middleweight. Oh yeah, Ritter de Ritter is. Middleweight's 205. So Christian Lee is the middle.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because it's one. It's like the 180.
80. Yeah. So
he just had a tough fucking fight.
He
for
did.
That one, so.
Yeah.
Anyway, Edmund Shabazian. We were talking about him before the show.
Left Coach Edmonds.
He's moved from Ronda MMA. I forget the name of the fucking, I don't even remember the name of the school. The other Edmonds school. Yeah, he was a big deal when he was first getting into the UFC.
When he first got into the UFC,
Derek kind of just completely murdered this guy's hype train.
Absolutely.
And he's just faded into oblivion. So we'll see what he looks like with a new camp.
Yeah, he's out of Kings now.
Yeah, I thought that was worth mentioning. You know, shout out to Kings MMA. They just followed me on Instagram the other day.
Oh, nice.
Raul Rosas Jr., the youngest fighter in the
Rosenstruik
UFC.
versus Dawkins.
Oh, is that? But you have a different order than I do.
Oh, do I?
That's the prelim headliner on my card.
Interesting. Weird.
We're both using Google too. That's the weird thing.
It's a conspiracy. It's all run by lizard people.
I can't. Yeah, I would think that Dawkins and Rosenstruik would be above them for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But Rosas Jr., youngest fighter in UFC history now, just turned 18 after winning Contender Series contract at 17. Had an insane Sulov stretch attempt. He's got all these crazy
hits like a spinning back kick from the pocket, like lots of wild shit. Fighting a guy 10-6 and Jay Perrin.
Jay Perrin's I think he is coming off of a loss also, right? Yeah. He just got lost. He's got 2 losses in a row.
Yeah, that's the kind of person they would bring in to fight.
Jobber Jay Perrin versus Raul Rosas Jr.
But like this is just the fight to make. This is a fight they want to make Rosas look good with.
They learned their lesson with Sage.
Yeah.
Because that was the last big young guy they had, and he looked like a fucking Power Ranger.
You can't match him up against other killers. You have to give them time to grow.
Yeah, he looked like a fucking Power Ranger. He, was a wholesome personality. Probably could have been a decent star if he was built properly.
And it's also, man, his dad was a big downfall for his technical development.
I agree.
That 100%. His dad really fucked him over as far as like trying to influence his fighting and being his coach.
And Rosas has a much deeper skill base than Sage did.
Yeah, it's wild to see someone at this age. He's turning 18. And he's already done MMA for over a decade.
That's pretty fucking crazy.
Pretty wild. We also saw what happened to Adam Pico though, but they brought him in. Aaron Pico. What did I say? Adam Pico.
Adam Pico.
Man, it is hard to keep up with 70 fucking students' names on top of this brain damage dog. Good God. Hey, Adam Pico, keep your head up, man.
If Aaron ever wanted to go out incognito, he just throws on a little fake mustache and some aviators.
Hi, my name is Adam Pico. De Gallo? But no, okay, so Aaron Pico, excuse me. But, they brought him, his debut. Pro MMA debut was someone that had a fuck ton of
7 fights.
Like
7 or 8 fights, pro fights.
That's tough. That's tough to go pro against, man. Like, it's a different ballpark. Paul Rosas being 6-0 and fighting someone that's 10-6, man, that makes it look kind of
even. Me and Bagels were talking about that on Toro Cup this weekend about Tommy Kouazi, who had his first MMA fight at 15 or 14.
Yeah, I got a picture of it over on the fucking wall when he was like a little kid. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I mean, that's this generation, man. And Tommy's not much older than this kid is, now.
I think he's 21 or 22
I think he's 20 or 21,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's kids out there now that they've come up in MMA.
Yes.
Their parents got them in MMA early and they stayed with it, and now it's just like the old school karate kids of the 80s and 90s.
That's it.
Jairzinho Rosenstruik versus Chris Dawkins. I feel like the UFC
hates the
is
Dawkins
owed
brothers.
money by the Dawkins family, or is trying to repossess their house like in Happy Gilmore.
Yeah, no shit. Are they part of the reason why Dana White left Boston or something? What the fuck, man? Yeah, it's wild, man. It's like the UFC hates the Dawkins brothers.
It has to be something like that. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know what they could have done, but to get Derek Lewis and then now Jairzinho. And, it's not like Jairzinho is a world beater. He definitely got as far as you can get as a one-dimensional person in heavyweight.
Yes.
He got to the top 6, top 5, and then just kind of hit a skill wall.
Yeah.
And I think he's skilled enough to tag Dawkins.
Yes.
Dawkins is very hittable. It's not like
Yes.
Dawkins is fast.
Yeah.
It's not like Dawkins is stronger or more technical of a striker. So I feel like Jairzinho just walks him here, probably.
This will probably, if it's over, it's probably in the first round.
Yeah, agreed. This one's fun. Bryce Mitchell versus Ilia Topuria.
Yeah.
This one's awesome.
Great fight to open up the card with.
And I honestly feel like a lot of people are sleeping on Topuria here.
Yeah. Bryce Mitchell, very good grappler, has a penchant to be hit. Ilia Topuria has a penchant for hitting people, and also knows how to fight around a grappler's game.
He's not a bad grappler.
He's not a bad grappler.
He's not
himself.
on Mitchell's level by
no,
any means.
But he does a good job of knowing how to throw a committed punch and not be in the same spot.
Yeah.
And he's always off by just enough to hit it really long counters. He's great about finding the body shot and following back up top, but he does a phenomenal job about like striking and being aggressive when he needs to be and just countering enough. Like he's never too far one or the other. He's as cautious as he is aggressive, if that makes sense. And I think that's like the wave of guys at featherweight that want to throw hands. Like they're like, I can't sit in one spot, and I can't also undercommit. And he has the grappling regimen, like where if he's against the wall, his counter wrestling is better than his offensive wrestling.
Yeah.
And he's kind of fighting into his own game plan. And when I talked about when he's perfect, he's perfect. It's like Wonderboy has his game plan. Where we talk about Wonderboy's even a lot wider at the wall than a lot of people are. A lot of people look by the wall and go, well, I guess I'm going to be on the wall.
Yeah.
Where Wonderboy's like, fuck that. I'm still going to be bladed along the wall because that'll create my exit. Where Topuria, I think he does a good job of, welcoming that cage fight and being a fucking ox on the wall.
He's really strong.
Like, I've never seen someone really have such good, strong, traditional double unders like him. Like, the way he looks like a power lifter just yeeting, like, my personal fucking, like, record, Like, he has a great, like, old-school double under lift.
Yeah.
And twist off the wall.
Yeah.
And, can Bryce Mitchell, like, chain wrestle past that? Yeah. But I think also Bryce Mitchell is going to be manhandled upper body-wise on the wall. And I'll be interested to see if he just focuses on, kind of like trying to limp back arm, pummel back under, and see where that cage fight takes place. It's I think, like, who wins the first cage exchange is going to start taking control of that fight.
I think that Bryce Mitchell
has a habit of getting punched on the feet by good strikers.
I would say that is Bryce Mitchell is a specialist.
Yes.
And this is the kind of fight where this is the level that you reach where if you are a specialist, you have to be so good as a specialist to get past a guy like Topuria, who is not a specialist in any area, but an A stat in every stat.
Yes.
And in his last fight, Topuria was really tested. Like, it looked like he was going to be, losing, and he knocked the guy out flat in the third round.
Yes.
It was one of those knockouts where it was, like, vicious and violent, and he just, like, put all the doubt in my mind aside. I mean, I think it was, like, episode 4 or episode 5 of this show where I was like, Topuria is my dark horse for future UFC champion. And if he buzzsaws through Bryce Mitchell.
Whoa, you pulled the Trevor.
It's like spreading to me right now. I'm osmoting it. If he can do that to Bryce Mitchell, he will be fighting the guys.
Very soon.
The names of names, the most elite fucking 145ers in the world, one of the hardest weight classes in the world. I think Armenia is going to have its first UFC champion in the next 3 years. That's my prediction there. Darren Till versus Dricus du Plessis. I feel like this is it's been like 2 years since we've seen Till, I think. And I think there's a lot of eyes on this one in terms of questions about Till's future.
It's just it's tough to be open about. He talked about like being scared and like realize that he's kind of worried about holding his place, and like sometimes like the more you admit that as a fighter, like you have a hard time committing to being in that fight. I think that he has like. I really truly think that he should be at the point where he has the right tools, physically and technique-wise, to be a good fighter still. But I just don't think that he can. He's fighting like how Nate Diaz fought Robbie Lawler, but like better, if that makes sense. And he's more active. He can still be fast. He can still throw combos, but it's like he doesn't have any kind of actual commitment to being in that fight. Like he will go out, he will punch, he will kick, he will try to grapple, but he's not in a fight. He's just doing it. Like he looks like, I don't know, let's say a 50-year-old male porn star just going through the ocean, or like the actions, you know, he's kind of just like, I've got no soul left, man. Like, I'm just doing this because I can. Like, horrible analogy. I don't know. That's the only thing I thought of. Like, but I don't know.
Martial arts coaches are supposed to be good at analogies.
Okay, he looks like an old, like, porn star fucking. Like, he looks sad and dead inside, man. Like, he can still use his hips, but I don't think he wants to. All right?
Dricus is too good of a grappler, I think.
He wants it too much right now compared to Till. And that's, like, you know, Driskius, he comes from the KSW champion, right?
I believe so, yes. Yeah, KSW.
Like, he's still a mean, aggressive motherfucker. And Darren Till just doesn't have it in him. Does that make, like, and that's really what it'll come down to, where,
yeah, for sure.
Where Darren Till is going to be hit with punches that he's only going to be hit with just because Duplessis just wants to get in his face and fucking throw. Or Till's going to be like, I'm going to try and jab and cross and move my head offline, and he'll get a little overwhelmed early on and then taken down. And then Darst.
Duplessis has like 3 Darst finishes. Till's been finished by Darst. You know, that's just my 2 cents. I've got Duplessis by sub-second round, I think.
Yes. We'll see Till make it through the first.
Yeah.
And then we'll see him come out in the second and be the 50-year-old porn star. Put it on a shirt.
Alex Morano is getting the biggest name of his UFC run so far. He's going to be taking on Santiago Ponzinibbio. 2 guys that definitely have stopping power.
Yes.
And I just think that, you know, Ponzinibbio hasn't looked the same since he came back from his big injury. And Morano's Morano's been, you know, he's been getting it done.
He's been getting it fucking done.
And
absolute, like,
motherfuckers.
Yes, and good guys too.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Really, and like Morano is the king of the dad bod squad, man. I love watching this guy fight. Like, if you're kind of in shape but still got titties, he should be your superhero right now. But no, Ponzinibbio, it's tough to come back from that kind of staph infection, man.
Yeah,
like
Dustin Poirier is dealing with it right now.
And he said, hey, at least staph infections don't know jiu-jitsu. But that's actually what he tweeted, I think.
Yeah,
Did you see that?
Yeah.
But no, like, yeah, Ponzinibbio, like, goddamn tough fight for him to still be, because he came up short before that, right? Oh, yeah, no.
He's got 1 win.
Oh, yeah. Michel Pereira.
Yeah.
He got, like, outboxed by Pereira. Mm-hmm. What else? Yeah, Jeff Neal beat him. He beat Miguel Baeza. That was a good fight. Lee, yeah, I think, you know, he's kind of getting the dog bred out of him with some of these losses.
Yeah, it's just been like, you know, when he first showed up on the scene, he fucking was knocking people out. He was exciting, he was explosive, and now it's like everything's a decision.
For him to win, he has to know that Moreno's going to lead the aggression dance, and he has to look for his counter striking.
Agreed.
I think that's how he got. Who just picked? No. He's fought everybody. Fuck. Not Jeff Neal. Man, I'm blanking on this guy's name. He's from Colorado. Tall, skinny black guy. That doesn't dwindle it down very much.
Uriah?
No, not Uriah Hall.
Okay.
Man. I don't know. I totally spaced on this fighter. I'm going to remember it tonight at midnight. It totally blanked from me. Sorry. But
okay.
Anyways, he had a great, I remember, like, he's knocked people out with counter hooks before. And I feel like that's what he has to look for with Morono. He cannot try and be the aggressor in this fight.
Yeah, he can't. Morono's got a lot of his knockouts with his back against the fence. Mm-hmm. So, I think that this is a catchweight fight, because I know that Morano's coming up to meet him at like they normally fight at 170, but I think that Santiago asked for catchweight.
Oh,
which
this
also
is a catchweight.
Isn't a great sign either.
Ooh, yeah. Neil Magny.
Neil fucking Magny.
Man, I knew, okay. God damn it, Trevor. Why
Neil
are you like
Magny
this?
is a tall, skinny black guy who's fought everyone.
Yeah, okay, so, yeah, Neil Magny. Fuck, man. That's who Ponzinibbio knocked out. Remember? Didn't he? Or am I getting that backwards?
I believe he did knock out Magny.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. That was a bad one too.
That was
but
a bad one.
And that's what I see. Like Ponzinibbio has to be okay with not being the aggressor. Yeah, sorry, Neil Magny. Fucking please don't hit me. My head can't take it.
In our co-main event of the evening, Paddy Pimblett, the baddie, returning, taking on Jared Gordon. What do we think about this one, Trevor?
Jared Gordon. I think that he is. Like, this is a big fight for Paddy. Like, not in star power, but if Paddy can make it look easy, then Paddy's legit. If Jared Gordon gives him, like, a really tough fight, which I want to see, then Paddy has a lot to work on.
So you're saying even if Jared loses, but it's a tough fight for Paddy, it's not a good look for Paddy?
Yeah.
I agree.
This fight is win-win for Jared Gordon.
Yeah, it's definitely...
As far as, like, for him to be, like, a co-main event now on a pay-per-view card, what I love about Gordon is, like, the message he has of battling through addiction and stuff like that. And he's a big inspiration and, like, he's a big role model, like, that recovery community and stuff like that. Paddy Pimblett talking about the mental health. Like, this is putting a spotlight on a good cause. Yeah. It's also putting a spotlight on, like, hey, can Jared Gordon do it? Like, if they're gonna give him this fight, like, I feel like Jared Gordon, he deserves this fight. But I think that
Paddy's legit though.
Paddy is pretty fucking legit. Jared Gordon kind of has the ability to keep his head in one spot when he's looking for his own punches. Man, to be honest, I kind of want to see Jared Gordon win just so I can see how people like Paddy like come back from losing and stuff like that. Man, I think he's gonna do it? Like, I honestly think that
something that's a little bit different.
I think that Jared's gonna probably have his best showing. If Paddy doesn't take him out early, Jared's going to have his best showing in the third round.
Yeah.
I think that this is that fight that's going to take Paddy the distance in the UFC. His first fight in the distance,
I don't think
You don't think so?
If it depends on how it plays
out.
out.
Or maybe like late stoppage
for
Pimblett.
If Jared keeps it on the feet, then yeah, 100% I could see it going to a decision, and I could see Jared winning or Paddy winning, but I think if Paddy gets him to the ground, they're not close in the jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. With me and looking at Paddy, the one thing I look for is when is his lifestyle going to catch up to him? That's rough to do to your body, man. People think that, like, drinking and doing drugs through a fight camp is tough. I will say, but, like,
as someone who follows or just, like, sees clips from his podcast all the time on social media, this period between these two last fights, he's not gone crazy.
It's the lightest he's stayed. He still blew up, but like
he's not going crazy. So I'm hoping that he's like actually listening to the advice millions of people are trying to give him, and that he is staying right. But the thing about Paddy for me is that, like, I've been following his career for a long time because I remember I was following MMA like on the level way deeper than I am now, where I was like watching Cage Warriors and KSW and downloading a fucking VPN to watch BT Sport and all this other shit because I was trying to watch everything and I could get my fucking hands on. And I remember the viral entrance of Paddy walking out through the crowd, and I've seen a lot of his fights, and I did a video on YouTube that has like 500 views that no one has seen it. It's called Paddy the Baddie Has Entered the Chat, and it's like a breakdown of Paddy's pre-UFC career that I made. And he's lost before. Unlike Sean O'Malley, unlike Israel, these guys who come into the UFC and are hot prospects.
Good call.
He has lost before, and he knows what it's like to come back from a loss. And I think the hardest loss he faced, like the most humiliating loss, he has avenged, and then the other loss was against the last Viking, Bjorn, whatever his name is, that was when he challenged for the double championship in Cage Warriors. So I will say that he's lost and come back better. So I don't have any doubts in my mind that like a losing would break him in this situation. I just think that losing would set him back tremendously versus like Sean O'Malley losing to Peter Yan. It doesn't set him back tremendously, whereas this fight definitely sets Paddy back tremendously if he loses in terms of him getting to the top, but it prolongs.
Like star power wise, like he's still like if he loses, he'll be like, nah, yeah, I fucking lost.
Yeah,
I made this mistake.
It'll be like
yeah.
McCann losing to Blanchfield. It doesn't really affect how popular they are.
Yeah.
Especially if Patty comes back and just crushes the next guy too. Because if he loses this guy, they're gonna give him somebody even easier.
Yeah.
So it's like
I also think like this is the only big fight that Jared Gordon can win at lightweight.
maybe, yeah.
Yeah, but can he
that's
still win it?
also
Like,
why they picked him.
Yeah.
That's why they picked him, because he's not doing great at lightweight.
Yeah.
He is legit though. I mean,
Yeah.
he belongs in the UFC. It's just that lightweight is the hardest division.
They
in the
want
world.
to see Patty fighting for a title. I don't give a shit if Jared Gordon ever fights for a title.
Yeah, but they know. I think they've figured it out. Sean O'Malley is a good example, and Alex Pereira as well. They have figured out how to cultivate people to the title if they want that for them. And they know that they can't get Patty very far off a win off Jared Gordon.
Yeah.
I think if he wins this one, it will be. He will no longer be able to not talk about it. He'll probably say it immediately in the post-fight interview, but he's got to do something about Terrence McKinney.
Yeah.
He's got that. He cannot let it slide any longer. It's been like a year and a half of constant. Every time T-Rex fights, he's talking about Patty, and Patty hasn't mentioned him. And I just feel like if he doesn't mention him after this one, where it's clear that they're both in the same spot, jockeying for position, it's like, Patty, we're not trying to say that you're trying to avoid a hard fight, but that is a tough fight.
That's a tough
Nobody,
fight.
if you take that fight, no one's going to be like, Patty's taking an easy fight.
Yeah.
No one will say that. It's like Sean taking Peter. Nobody was accusing Sean of taking an easy fight. They were accusing him of jumping the line, but nobody was denying that that's the hardest fight he could have had, and I think T-Rex is the hardest fight Patty can have.
Absolutely.
For sure. Main event. The fight we famously called it the fight no one asked for last week. Ankalaev versus Jan Blachowicz for the light heavyweight belt. Undisputed light heavyweight belt also. Not interim. So Ankalaev, I think, has this one.
I'd agree.
By
decision.
I don't know if he can submit Jan, but I just feel like Jan has to hit him hard and hit him early to have a shot here.
Jan, and I think that Ankalaev, what's so frustrating is that he does fight like a fucking veteran every time he fights.
He does.
He always tries to fight the perfect game plan.
He looks like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
He really does, though.
Yes.
Yeah, but Jan, I sadly, it was great to see him win the title, but I think that little moment has already kind of come and gone for him. Even in a rematch of him and Yuri, him and Yuri fighting for the first time, or him and Glover fighting.
I think the narrative of him being this amazing light heavyweight champion was a fabrication of the UFC to make it seem more impressive if Israel beat him.
Well, yeah, and it's just because the UFC light heavyweight division is that fucking off kilter right now. So yeah, I think Ankalaev is gonna probably pick this one up, man. I mean, you said we're gonna talk about it a lot. I think it's gonna be.
I mostly meant Patty.
Jan has a hard time kind of keeping it as a full MMA fight. Ankalaev does a great job of just kind of dragging people down, stalling, keeping the body locked.
It's gonna be a boring fight.
It's gonna be fucking.
It's gonna be
boring
as
shit.
It's not gonna be a Yuri versus Glover.
No,
I think that's the biggest.
That was such.
That's the biggest
fucking,
slap in the face about all of this. Is it's okay if Yuri is injured. It's not okay that they took that fight that was such a banger on the first one,
Yes.
one of the best fights of the year, and replaced it with this fight
I would like
if
to
you
see,
had a fucking Doppler radar for fights of whether or not they were going to be boring, this would be a Category 5 hurricane.
Hell,
you know?
I'd have loved to have seen Ankalaev versus Glover for an interim.
That would have been
or
fine.
Jan Glover 2 for an interim.
Yeah, and that's all Glover asked
I
for.
really would have watched that more than this main event.
All Glover asked for was a couple weeks to get ready for Ankalaev. He said he would fight Jan immediately, but he said he wanted just a full camp for Ankalaev because Ankalaev's a specialist. He doesn't fight anything like either of the guys he was getting ready for. So that's all he asked for. The UFC said, "Fuck you, dude." So I get it. They need this is the last pay-per-view of the year. They need a title fight, but they could have done an interim belt.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have fucking hurt them to do an interim belt. And
I still think that Glover will get the winner of this.
Of course,
we're going to see Glover versus Ankalaev.
The narrative surrounding this fight and all the intangibles are more interesting than the matchup itself, and talking about what's next for the light heavyweight division, because in my opinion there's the guys like John that come along and they stale out a division just by being so good. You can almost say the same thing about middleweight for a while with Israel, how you can only become so good at that division, right?
Yeah.
Ankalaev is the kind of guy who just murders a division. Like, he comes in, he grabs the belt, and then he just fucking wrestle fucks people for every defense and makes the light heavyweight title less and less desirable to see a title fight for.
Hey, but if John Bones loses against Ngannou, then he's going to come back and get his belt back.
He can't make light. He won't be able to make light.
Yeah, I don't think he will. Yeah.
He won't be able to make light heavyweight, especially if he is on some kind
Watch
of...
him start a cruiserweight class
if
just
he,
for him.
If he is on some kind of growth hormone, then there's no way.
Yeah.
If there's any chance he's cheating still, there's no way. But if he's not cheating, then maybe it's possible. But
I think it'd be hysterical if, like, John Jones goes like, yo, I can't fight at light heavyweight again. Can y'all make me a 225 weight class?
Yeah, I guess
that would be like, although
in my opinion, if
he'd
they
be fighting the same fucking people again.
If they wouldn't create a 165 for St. Pierre, they're not going to create a 225 for John, because St. Pierre was.
What did he want? 75.
That's what it was. I think it was 75.
They did that last 5 pounds. It's like the fucking worst.
Yeah, and I think it was I think there were a lot of people who were calling for 65 as well, like Benil and Kevin Lee and a couple other people. But I think if they're not going to create a weight class for St. Pierre back at the height of his power and his goodwill, then they're not going to do that for John after 3 years of John being on the shelf and bullshitting them.
God damn it, here we are still talking about John Jones. Fuck.
I mean, how can you... This division is defined by him.
Yeah.
He is the motherfucking one, we talk about it a lot on the show, but it's like 205, Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz, Rampage Jackson. It used to be the most exciting division in all of combat sports, and it used to be the division where the lighter guys could come up and fight the bigger guys that would die it down, you know? And it just sucks now, man. It just fucking sucks. Yeah, it was really exciting. John came along. He was exciting. He won the belt, and then, I mean, I love DC and I love Rumble. They had good fights, but they were exceptions to the standard, and the standard was pretty piss poor. Mm-hmm. So that being said, Ankalaev, I think, gets this done with relative ease. Mm-hmm. With relative ease. But, that Polish power is always a factor. I don't want to underestimate the fact that Jan definitely has a puncher's chance.
I'll be excited if, Jan does win by left hook knockout or right hook knockout, but at the same time, it just means that Glover will get the belt back.
Right. Well, guys, that's it for this episode of the 10A Fightcast. I'm doing commentary this weekend, Combat Night 8 in Asheville for Carolina Combat League. And then next weekend I'll be back on Flow Grappling commentating Carolina Combat League's Combat Night number 9 in Charlotte. And also our first grappling student competition, Super Fight, is happening. Our student Josh is going to be having his first Super Fight debut on Carolina Combat Night 9. So
a little bit of slap jiu-jitsu.
Maybe.
Oh, maybe slap jiu-jitsu.
It's right now. It's just a jiu-jitsu match.
Oh, okay.
We're seeing if his opponent is willing to do. Because the thing about his opponent is he's competing this weekend, and he's in a combat jiu-jitsu match, and he's like, I think he's kind of waiting to see if he gets beat up a little bit, okay. And then if he gets out of this one with no brain damage, he'll probably do combat jiu-jitsu again. So we'll see.
I got Vic this weekend down in South Carolina.
Is that like a tournament?
No, just a one-off fight.
A Walker Vivian or
no, not Walker Vivian. It's run by my buddy Jerome Robinson.
Okay.
So it's like outside of Sumter. So
cool.
Another little kickboxing match for Vic. Big Tyler might do a PKB in the morning. Maybe. Yeah.
All right, so that's it. Next week we'll be back talking about UFC 282 results and more. We were almost joined by our friend Chris Stansel today on the podcast, but perhaps we will be able to get him in for a future episode. So until next time, guys, enjoy yourselves and the fights.